super excited to bring King Z back because it's rare that we get to talk about decent stuff on this channel, especially when it's new stuff and not like old classics that we stumble across, that we dig up, from well buried and forgotten, obscure stuff. But dude, Fallout on Amazon, dude, it's all over the internet right now. People are discussing this on Reddit and different subs like we were talking about. People were talking about it on Twitter. I've seen some Facebook fan pages coming up. The memes are coming in. Dude, Fallout is everything. I'm going to speak for both of us on this one because we've talked a little bit about this already offline. Fallout, I think, is exactly for us that it passes that smell test of adaptations are difficult, but not impossible. They took a known IP. They very thoughtfully and carefully constructed an original story for an original character within that world, played it out over 8 grown-up professional episodes that were no shorter than 45 minutes apiece, and told they had a through line for three characters in this show, focusing on Lucy, of course. Maximus has his run. The Ghoul also has, especially in those later 3 episodes. We'll talk about that shortly. I thought that was some good stuff there as we got more on him. I was hoping we did get more on him. But initial impressions, those right off, just to get it right out of the way, I was digging this show. I'm glad they left it, spoiler alert, open-ended for season 2. This story is going somewhere. I hope they planned 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, whatever, because I want more of this show. And that kind of seems to be the consensus that I've come across. And I think you mentioned it in our episode 1 review. Guys, go check that out. We just dropped that earlier today, where you had asked your wife, hey, what did you think of the episode? And she was like, I want more. Like, I'm interested in going back to this world. What do you think on everything I just blurted out? Run it down.
All right, before I talk, I want to say thank you for joining us for this long dive into Fallout, and leave your comment and if you like the show or not, and what was your favorite part. So, this show I was completely digging. As we hinted in the first video that you can see the card right here. If you want to go check out our episode 1 day after review, go ahead and go check that out. First night we watched 4 episodes right off the bat, because I was really digging it. Nolan directed the first 3 of those episodes. It was the same director, writer, had dual writers. The next 4 had different directors, different writers. But I think they all stayed pretty close to what the story was.
Andor vibes.
You definitely didn't see
vibes.
any. You didn't see any major left turns. Maybe these people were more, because we did go a little bit more deeper in the vault and what was going on in the vault. So maybe they had more insight onto what the vault people were doing during the whole the run of the season 1. But and if you don't know, season 2 has already been greenlit, so there will be a season 2. It's already been greenlit. I believe they're going to start casting and filming either late this year or real early next year.
I hope they're Johnny on the spot with that, just as a quick aside. I hate these big gaps between these streaming shows. When your show is trending in the zeitgeist, on the social medias and things like that, you need to strike. You need to hit it while the iron's hot. You need to get stepping on season 2.
I can see that, but I also see you don't want to rush it and make poor decisions and poor quality. When you have something that, you have something people like, you want to make sure you do it justice. Rushing it, just look at Marvel. They rushed so many movies there after phase 4, was it phase 3 ended or phase 4 ended?
4 and 5 are trash, yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens when you start rushing to get stuff out.
Yeah, it becomes content instead of actual, artistic creation or anything like that. Dude, for sure. So, dude, overall, we're definitely digging on the show. We're gonna break this down into like 3 separate segments here. We're talking earlier. We're gonna do story, aesthetic, and kind of character, because I think that for me anyway, while the story was interesting and fairly compelling, I think story here is actually the weakest of the 3 things. I think the character work here across the 3 mains is superb. I'll get that out of the way right off the bat. Like I love the 3 main characters. I even down the stretch when we get into those later episodes, and they kind of give us this whole other subplot that had to do with Lucy's brother as he's kind of investigating what's going on in the vault. He starts to figure out that things aren't what they kind of seem down there. And we might, guys, I always forget this part. We might dip into some spoilers. It won't necessarily be intentional, but we cut these things up fairly new. Yeah, Kingsy's going to do the woo. We're going to throw that in there. But we'll try to stay vague, at least at the beginning, when most of the people will be here before, you guys check out and go watch the show and then hopefully come back. Lucy's brother has an interesting little subplot where, things start going really weird in the vault. There's another issue with their neighbor Vault 32 that kind of kicks off kind of the middle part of the show where they realize some stuff really went wrong over there. And then he starts exploring Vault 31 and some stuff is definitely wrong in 31. And those are kind of the big reveals that come later. They're very strategically placed because when you get to that end part of the show, that's when I needed to know that. So I had more that I wanted to see in season 2. Like I didn't just want to follow Lucy around in season 2 because ostensibly her story is just about done. Her first story anyway is done at the end of the season. Like the hero's journey is resolved here, you know, and like a new story kicks off. But I didn't necessarily just want to see more of her because they gave us more interesting stuff that they world built in Vaults 31 and 32.
Yep.
You know, so I think the character stuff here is probably the best for me. What do you think? And we'll talk specifically about characters. What do you think about the characters? Who was your favorite? Give me some minutes on the characters.
All right, so I definitely was digging the duel. I mean, the actor is a complete
fan favorite.
He's just awesome. I mean, everything he does, he puts like his whole self into it. And I think he did great as the ghoul. Like they even had a comment in there. It's like they told me a ghoul came to see me. They didn't tell me he was the ghoul.
The ghoul.
And that's exactly how he was. He was the ghoul. Lucy had a great story arc of growing up. I think that's a big thing. It's not really more of a hero's journey. It's more of a growing up, coming of age story.
Yeah.
Because being growing up in the vault, so naive. It proves the whole mushroom. When people say like they treat me like a mushroom, they keep me in the dark and they feed me shit. That's what her life was. She was kept in the dark, and they fed her what they wanted her to know, and then that's the life she grew up in. When she got outside the vault, she realized this isn't what the world's really like, and I think that was a big wake up call to a lot of people because they believe the world should be a certain way, and then when you actually get out there, especially like when you're in high school and everything, and then when you get out into the real world, it's nothing like what you thought the world should be. And even though you still try to keep some of your what you believe in, like you saw her like sticking up for people, doing it her way, I suggest you stand down, try and do the right thing in a world that pretty much celebrates you doing the wrong thing, which I mean,
the world pretty much makes it necessary for you to do the wrong thing on the surface, for sure.
So I think it's a great coming of age story of her realizing that. And the thing is, the great thing was that she wasn't compromising.
Yep. Yeah, it wasn't dark like a Game of Thrones situation where like we had to take the hero and then break down their code of ethics and drag him down into the dirt with everybody else. I appreciated that too. Like I don't think I needed that from another show right now. I think I'm done with that for a while.
But you definitely saw the breaking of her, like, and the how bad the world could actually be corrupted when you're taken out of your little when you go from a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big pond type setting.
And she has a line down the stretch somewhere. I don't remember the context it was in. It might have been to the ghoul in one of those later episodes where she calls herself naive. She's like, it's different down there. I didn't know. We're naive. We don't know what it's like up here, you know, because it wasn't an everyday thing for Vault 33 to take little surface jaunts up. Like that, they were under the impression radiation was still at a lethal level. If you remember in the first episode, they were all celebrating, hey, like Reclamation Day when we go back up is probably going to be here for the generation of Lucy and the incumbent husband's children. Like they weren't like a stone's throw away from going up. Like they were pretty sure if they went up, they'd die, you know, like at that point.
And I think that falls into the propaganda that they were pushing down there because there were people living up there. Yep. The radiations are good enough for people to live up there. Maybe not completely healthy. I mean, we saw that when she had radiation poisoning, which is a big thing in the game, and you have to take your Rad X?
Rad X, yep.
To get rid of your radiation poisoning. But I mean, that's why I think that falls into that there were in the like the heartbreak of when they saw like Recreation Day already happen. Like it already happened without them, and they were supposed to come up and bring like justice and like, you know, the democracy
science,
back,
engineering, democracy. Right? Did they say that? It sounded like Helldivers for a minute. It was kind of funny. Yeah, I think the other half of her great character work that they put into her, like you said, and we talk about this all the time, dude. Not a Mary Sue. Guys, I know some of you still out there, you apply that to every character that happens to be a woman, and she's not. Like, they give you the episode 1 where she's breaking down a couple of things she's good at. Yes, she can shoot, but everybody in the vault could shoot at a baseline. They were all, it's like Super Earth Democracy from Helldivers or something like Starship Troopers. Like, she's a citizen. They all have basic skills like that. They all have a basic aptitude and things that they rely on. But, like, it doesn't come up a lot in the show where she's not John Wick. Like, she's not gunning down 30, 40, 50 mutants at a time. Like, the only person that could shoot on the show worth a damn is the Ghoul. And when he starts shooting, he starts effing things up. We'll talk about that in the aesthetics section. But, like, for her, she's not out there bodying 3 dudes hand-to-hand combat like a superhero movie. Like, she's not. She makes mistakes. She gets her ass kicked in every... Dude, you warned me that, dude, it got worse for her after episode 1. You weren't kidding, my friend. You were not kidding. She's losing a body part at one point in a very savage scene that they put her through to put her on notice. And I'm like, oh, God, what is this show? Like, if I had pearls, they'd have been clutched. You know what I mean? Like, it was like that. You weren't wrong. You were not wrong.
And then we go to Maximus, who I believe is my least favorite character. I was not a big fan of the Maximus character. I think
why?
Even though
like, what is it about him?
I think a little bit has to be with his delivery, but I think the one thing it was that he was trying to play that wannabe hero.
Yep.
Because of the childhood, but he'd been through so much trauma, his hero kind of turns him a little bit to the dark side.
Definitely.
So I think he definitely tried to play that balance. Like, and plus he was very naive. I mean, look at when they went down to, we already said spoilers, but when they went down to the second vault and like they put him in his own place and like the food and all that type of stuff. Or like when he was talking about, they talked about sex and he didn't actually know what that was. Like,
dude, because he's in a cult and that's what they tell young dudes. Exactly. I thought that was another great bit of the aesthetic part. We'll get to that in a minute too. Like that, both of their ideas pertaining to like that particular topic were a little weird.
Yeah,
but that's the vault and that's the Brotherhood.
Yeah, so I think that it wasn't like him as an actor. I just think that the character itself, they try to do too much. They try to put like 5 pounds in a 6 pound or 6 pounds in a 5 pound bag.
Yeah, and it was just a little too much. Yeah, dude, and that's the thing too. This show, I think I said this when we did episode 1. Everybody is so weird in this show.
Yeah, everybody.
You just have to like chalk it up to being weird. Like, I don't think the performance was bad.
No.
The delivery I think was supposed to be kind of stunted like that, and how he reacted to different things. With the sex stuff, the violence stuff, the playing out the hero fantasy thing. He never completely dumps over into the dark side, but he walks right up to that line and like looks over. And like when he started
to put a finger over just to see how warm it is.
You know what I'm saying? Like he towed the water a little bit, Like it's that one, he's got that really gruesome scene where he watches the one dude. I don't remember, was he bullying somebody? He was stealing something. He grabs the dude's dome with the power armor and just crushes the skull.
That's when they were trying to steal the armor. They were trying to steal the armor.
Yeah. He got his arm up in there. That's right. Yeah. That was dope. That was cool, by the way. That was some good shit. Definitely some good shit. But like, I think that without more, maybe what that character needed, and then we'll jump into the aesthetic. Maybe what that character needed was more time with that friend that opted out of the mission that he ended up going on.
They found out that was self-inflicted wound instead of someone hurting her because she got promoted.
Exactly. Or maybe he needed stuff about him like a little bit more about him pre-war, or what it was like for him until he got found by the brother. I don't know. There was something missing to that, because we got it in spades for Lucy. Like, the life in the vault is this. Yeah. We're going to do the right thing and have a nice day. Okay, then. Yeah. Okay. Like, we get all of her. And then the Ghoul, it comes later, episodes, 6, 7, 8 or whichever.
You see what led to his drive.
Brilliant.
I love
all of that.
When he showed up at the very end and he just has done out, he's like, do you want another autograph? Like, which played into the whole flashback. And he's like, where? And then he pulls a gun out, where's my family?
Dude, so that was the best. I was like, oh shit. The Ghoul actually has a journey of his own. Uh-oh.
But what was even better in that scene?
It was good.
You just said it was Lucy with her dark Okie-Dokie.
Uh-huh.
Like her hair all like down and
Dude, because let's see, we can talk endings real quick just to like, how it wraps up. Dude, strong ending. I want more. It made sense. Like they didn't shoot their way out of Dodge. That this wasn't a superhero show. It wasn't supposed to be like Rambo, part 3 or like, Predator or T2. Like, no, there was no shootout here. Like the ghoul tells Lucy at the end when all of the various stuff pops off and people are and the Brotherhood is converging on Moldaver's facility to recover what turns out the widget here is cold fusion. Is something that Moldaver had been working on. It would have been like a 0-point energy situation that would have changed the world, but Vault-Tec bought it and suppressed it. That way they could maintain the profit line. It's kind of typical. We see this stuff in sci-fi before.
So anyone who doesn't know what cold fusion is a small nuclear reactor nuclear reaction that can happen in a smaller container. Think of a 5-gallon, like they did it really small in the show, but take a 5-gallon trash can, make it a nuclear reactor, and then it can self-contain is cold fusion. It has never successfully been done, even though in 1989, 2 electromagnetic scientists said that they did it, but they could never prove it.
Yeah. But the working theory to this day is that it would have to be shielded unconventionally with electromagnetic fields and no like solid surface. Nothing we have could obviously contain that level of heat.
Yeah, so, but the power it would produce would be infinite. Infinite amount of power. Because it would be a continuous nuclear reaction over and over and over again, and you don't need to refuel it. You don't need uranium. Because the difference between fusion and fission is is that it comes together, and fission is splitting apart.
And that's how you get the waste product, right?
Yeah.
So that's the widget in the show that they reveal they were working on in like episode 5. With Moldaver's working, but Vault-Tec bought out her company to suppress the research. So when the Brotherhood of Steel finds out that the scientist from the beginning is has defected out, and he's heading across the wasteland to deliver a technology of incomparable power, or whatever it is, they figure it out. They show up to Moldaver's base at the end, and the ghoul did my point before we got off on the cold fusion thing, which we needed that. The ghoul tells her, like, if you stay here and lament everything that's happened, you are going to die, because the Brotherhood of Steel is going to roll up in here and shoot everything here. They're not going to ask questions. Like, they're just going to start shooting. And they're going to take whatever they want, and they're going to go. And he fucking bails, which is the best part. Like, he's not begging her shit. He's just like, well, I'm going that way.
Yep.
Deuces. And she hits her with the dark Okie-Dokie, like you said, and then she finally gears up and follows him out. And I'm like, dude, I need season 2 of this damn show, because now we're going to shift gears into, she's going to be pursuing one of the fleeing villains. There was a big little reveal there. She got some harsh truths, and it broke her. You know what I mean? It did. And then the ghoul has now a very compelling situation that he wants to go, because that reunion, if it happens, isn't going to be all sunshine and roses, because his wife is basically complicit in some of this idiocy of how, what happened to the world, which is a great interpersonal conflict that you see brewing over time that kind of pops off when they're having the discussion about dogs in the vault, where the mom's like, oh, so the daughter's going to be kind of broken up that your Patches or whatever the dog's name is can't go to the vault. And Walton Goggins, who's still Cooper Howard or wherever his name is at the beginning, is like, what do you mean we can't bring the dog? Who said we couldn't bring the dog? I don't know. It's a rule. Who made the rule? Oh, I don't know. It's not important. We got one of the better vaults. He's like, yeah, I'd like to know who's making the fucking rules.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I love this guy. I would say that shit. Like, he makes sense to me. What do you mean I can't bring the fucking dog? And then she has a rational reason. And I'm like, yeah, but still, who's signed off on that, though? Like, I want to fucking know.
Who are they?
Who are they? Right. Who are they? Capital T. You know? So I was with that. So these three, all those characters, the main characters are all great. The side characters, as we kind of get them, are kind of inconsequential, but they're kind of funny. The scientist, played by your buddy there, and I can't remember the actor's name. He's great.
Michael
The lady that's actually, like, the lady who's his broker, that, like, he's paying to get him across the wasteland, like the old lady that, like, gets him to shoot out and shit with the ghoul in the town. She was funny. Dude, attention Star Wars, because here's my per video thing on that. The mechanic from Mandalorian should have been this chick. Like, that's funny. Like, she's funny. The woman you got is not funny. Okay, that's it
Also,
for Star
like
Wars.
in that scene where she's trying to get the other lady to help her, and that I was going to eat my beans, but I'll help out. Beans is a big thing throughout the game.
Yep.
You hear people talk
Yep.
about eating beans a lot in the game.
Dude, I might have to put you up to doing like a short, like a short or a reel or some shit. Like, how many Easter eggs did you spot in 8 episodes? Because you could probably pick out 40 of them. I'm like, I don't know that shit. I knew Rad-X, I knew giant cockroaches and power armor, and Vault-Tec and Pip-Boy and Vault-Boy. That's what I know.
Yeah,
That's about it. But let's speaking of that, let's swing over into the aesthetic side of things here to keep things moving. So, as a the most casual of players of this franchise. I said before, I think I played 4. I played some in New Vegas. 76 was kind of a bust for me. I never played anything mobile. I never played anything on the PC. But it's ubiquitous enough, the Vault-Tec logo, the Fallout logo, knowing who Valve is, knowing what a Pip-Boy is, knowing the Vault-Tec, the Vault-Boy logo, thumbs up thing. I think anybody that's been, anywhere around gaming since like the 90s would know what this is, right? So we're all expecting in the Vault, it's super sterile. It's 1950s. It's like the Donna Reed show, My Three Sons. Like, it's that vibe. You know what I mean? It's Pleasantville. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that. Howdy, neighbor. Like that's the whole thing. Like, interpersonal conflict is zero. Everything is calculated and rationed out. They think they're free, but it's the most managed democracy fascist shit you've ever seen. But it's a very thin veneer because everybody's healthy and pleasant. They don't realize that they can be controlled or that they're ever manipulated. So the vibe was good in the Vault for me. What did you think of all the various Vault situation? Like, just the look and the feel of the people.
Well, I think
on point or no?
Oh yeah, I think the costume designer really hit it on the head with this one, especially
the jumpers.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that they were going more from Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 for the design of everything. Which, those are 2 of the best looking games that they made.
They sold millions of copies. I mean, they knew.
Yeah, and also since the show come out, the rise in those 2 have been
Steam numbers.
Yeah, it's caused a huge spike in both Fallout 4 and 76. Let's see, 6 year high. It's been 6 years since the last one came out, and since the show came out, 17,000 people have downloaded one of those 2 games.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, my brother was telling me earlier that Fallout 4 on consoles is due to get like an HD patch upgrade or whatever we're calling it. Like, it's going to be boosted or refit in some way that's going to like boost frame rate and textures and things like that. So there's a big, I don't know what technically it was. There's a big improvement coming to Fallout 4 joining 76, which is already on the pass. So, if you're into
I thought Fallout 4 was on the pass already. I know it's on the PC.
4 is on the pass, 76 is on the pass, but a major update to 4 for the textures or performance is coming.
Okay.
To tie into the release of the show, so those numbers are going to go even higher. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
So aesthetic-wise, the Pip-Boy, like the arm thing, it has the perfect pixelated green screen with the twisty dial, the different tab settings at the top. I thought that was great. She uses, while she's out there in the wasteland, like the map function that has the tracker. And I'm like, okay, that's a waypoint for a quest marker. I like that. I'm with that.
Yeah,
their apartments look like shit I had in the games, Go ahead,
very 1950s appliance settings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I did like that they had different vaults run by different people, because that's the thing in the game, like different type of societies and different type of vaults. Like Fallout 4, it was all cryogenics chambers. Like, you went into the vault and then you went into a cryogenic chamber and went to sleep.
Okay.
The inciting event that gets you out is that something wakes him up in his vault and they take his kid. Or her kid, depending on if you're playing a male or female character.
Right.
You're taking your character's kid, and then your whole main mission is to find your child.
Shit, I'm going to have to go back and play that. That might hit differently now that I'm grown, have a kid. True. But I like that too, and I like that they hint at that later in the episodes. Aesthetic. This is like a story aesthetic blend, where the way that kind of Vault-Tec gets everybody on board to invest in this program is they basically promise all these other companies, bro, you can run your Vault-Tec community however you want. You want only all women? Have that shit. You want only dogs being in charge? Have that shit. You want to make random decisions to figure out who gets life support and who doesn't? Have that shit. Like, it was weird. But that's an Easter egg into the game, because the lore pickups in the game are always like tactical or technical reports from other vaults where it's like, oh, we don't open vault 16 because, the zombie virus got out in that one. So that shit's just sealed, like that. But, and then you find out that like vault 16 was like the test vault to see what would happen with this virus. And there's millions of examples like that from this franchise, which is what a lot of the people love, is the stuff you find along the way that kind of fleshes out the world that you're never going to play in those vaults because that's not your game. But it's out there, and it sparks the imagination, that stuff. And that was one of the cooler things they revealed down the stretch in the show. I really like that.
Yeah. And like how they hinted at, like you're saying that people were saying that it was China the whole time that dropped the bomb.
Yeah, it was something weird with that we were talking about. I was talking about that with some friends earlier. Yeah, and to me as a casual, I don't know.
Think about the end of episode 2 where, they cut off his head. Did you see what was written on the red poster that was right there?
No,
CCCP.
Yeah, see, I do remember that, and that's why when I was having that chat with people, I'm like, I don't ever remember China being the Red Menace for that time period of real life.
CCCP has to do with the Soviet Union.
That's what I'm saying. I was saying to these people, I don't remember China ever being the Red Menace during the Cold War, despite whatever political ties they might have had. It was always Russia.
It was always Russia.
The later games probably changed focus to reflect a more modern era where China had evolved into a superpower. And
I don't think
Russia
the games
was on a downslide.
ever changed. I think it was, if they're going to change it, it would have to be in the show because it was a set lore throughout the games, even though they're different timelines. Like we were pointing out in our comments on our original video, which you can go check out right here in our card, of them having different
below
timelines.
Here, guys. Those of you who know who you are, comment here and explain to us the timeline as you know it, because we're still trying to put some of those pieces together. But let's stick to aesthetics here just for a quick second. We talked about the vaults. Talk about the surface world, because I think that we've seen enough in the way of like Walking Dead. We've seen enough with this. We've seen The Last of Us. We reviewed that. How does this world stack up where it's not a zombie post-apocalypse? It's just straight up nuclear apocalypse. What did you think? Was it not enough? Was it too limited? Where do you stand on that?
What was it? Philly was the first one they went to.
Yeah,
was the first town, and that had a complete drawback to like the old Wild West spaghetti western type feel to it. With the wood store shop. People running around just doing their own thing. One guy out there like harvesting water from sand.
Yep. There's lots going on.
Have you tried to put water in the water filtration system? Where do we find water? Straight drink all over water. I think the comedy in this was great. We talked about that in a little bit.
On point. On point.
But
we could talk about that in story.
I think they did a very good job on what a post-apocalyptic people living in wastelands, like areas that are still inhabitable because half-life of radiation is a long time.
Very long.
And it would look like what. You're just trying to survive, so you're going to throw anything together. Of course, they're not going to have skyscrapers again, and even though it's 200 years, you're still dealing with a wasteland. You don't have the mining equipment, you don't have the resources that you have in a modern world like we do today that's not contaminated. I mean, to build that type of stuff, it would take a long time to get back up to where we were. I mean, you wipe off 1 billion people off the face of the earth and see how technologically savvy you would be.
For sure. And not just like in terms of like the snap Thanos style, like no, they're wiped out because like shit exploded, was vaporized and melted down to glass.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly right. But I was digging, I like that first kind of town they were at there, it had all like the ramshackle buildings, shit like you said, bolted together, some sheetrock here, some wood fence panels here. There's a side of a school bus over here, but it's all welded together. Like I'm with that. We got plenty of like CGI like backdrops to like cratered out cities with like the leaning skyscraper skeletons, thing like the typical stuff you see in the situation. Where I guess I enjoyed this is that we didn't have to watch them walk through all this crap a whole lot in different junctions, especially the city bits. Like I feel like we got enough of that in The Last of Us. Like Lucy ends up trekking through a couple, like they almost look like rural roads at different points because there is wildlife, there are trees and stuff in different places. So it was a change from just like the blown out desert in certain places that I thought broke up that kind of visual monotony of here's the barren wasteland and sands. You know what I mean? It's just sand dunes everywhere and sun bleached cattle skeletons and shit like that. So I like the change. Yep. There was enough difference there, enough variety is the word I'm looking for, variety. that I was visually engaged at different places, especially when they run up on that one part where they're trying to get the tracking device that's stored in a human head, and the mutant alligator, somebody's uncle, which was wild and falls under the comedy part. Like an animal eats it and then like jumps back in the river, but it's like a radioactive river, so they can't necessarily be in it for long. But I'm like, oh, there's water, there's trees. This looks like a river. Like it's not, like there was enough weird shit to watch, and I appreciated that.
And it was a great way that they showed that too, because the Pip-Boy had a built-in Geiger counter in it, so it would go off when she's around radiation. So that way they don't have to say it; they're actually showing you that it's radiated by throwing the sound in there instead of going, "You can't drink that because it's radiated water," which would be really dumb. Right. So I think that was a brilliant way to do it. Was just throw it as a part of the Pip-Boy, because it is in the game.
And they effectively built drama and tension through that for her too. As she's walking with the ghoul at one point, she's kind of his prisoner at one stretch, and she's getting thirsty. He has water, doesn't give her, like, he drinks it and then dumps out some to be a dick, which was great character development. But then she gets to a spot where like there's obviously dirty water, and she drinks it. Like she breaks down and drinks it. And I'm like, so I'm like, we knew this character was being tested and pushed, and like she's walking with one shoe at one point because she's being tested and pushed, and I'm like, this is how it's done. I know we just dip back into character, but there's aesthetic to that too. The ghoul was so cool. The ghoul's personal aesthetic was so cool. So eerily off-putting to look at with no nose, Like that's some good stuff, man, with it. I like it. I like it. Yeah, what anything else on the aesthetic? What you think? We didn't get to see a whole lot of the Brotherhood of Steel. You just want to talk about like what the armor, the drop ships. I thought it all looked okay. I didn't have any real problems with it down the stretch.
Like they did it more of a, how do they say it? They have a high cleric, so they made it kind of like almost a religious cult. Like you'd have the paladin who protects the religion type thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
So we didn't get too much of them. We didn't get too much of the Enclave, but that's just like science geeks, though, right? Like they didn't have a particular. Do they have a particular vibe in the game, like imagery, symbology, anything that?
Tell you the truth, I
really
don't
them.
remember. Yeah,
that's what I mean. But everybody knows the power armor. Like that's the thing.
It's on the cover of 4. It's on the cover of a couple of them.
It might be on the cover of most of them once they're revealed in game. Like they might not have been in the earliest 2 games, but once they showed up, like it's ubiquitous.
Actually, I think the only
X-wing. Yeah.
Out of the main games, the only one that it's not on is Fallout New Vegas.
So that's what I'm saying, dude. Because they had the Fallout symbol on like the Vegas,
and they had the one guy there,
Vegas sign,
who's wearing like the gas mask. He's not in power armor,
right? But I mean, power armor is like the Star Destroyer or the X-wing or like the USS Enterprise of this world. Like everybody knows that the logo of the helmet with the half respirator and shit like that. So the aesthetics on point. So they hit here. Let's talk story real quick. Well, not real quick. We'll talk story. So, like you said at the beginning, you kind of corrected me on it. It's not so much a hero's journey. I mean, there's a main character. It's Lucy. She doesn't split time evenly with Maximus and the Ghoul, and they eventually cross paths at different points. It is more of a coming-of-age story for her, even though she's grown. And the coming-of-age really is her realizing that the outside world beyond the vault kind of blows, and it's not fair, and it is ugly, and it can be violent. But she always maintains, like you said, that code of honor, like her personal code that she was taught to live by is always do the right thing.
Yeah.
And even though it gets her ass kicked, even though it gets her, missing a finger, even though it gets her like beat up in several different places and, radiation sick and seeing all kinds of awful shit. Because when we talk about awful shit, like when you take a bullet in this world, like it's a 50 caliber bullet, no matter what kind it is. Like if you take a bullet to the chest, like something the size of my fist is exploding out of your back.
Yeah.
There's no flesh wound in this. Actually, no, Maximus takes one to the arm on the bridge. I guess so. If the ghoul,
but that wasn't a bullet.
That's right. It was a human tooth.
It was a human
tooth. This world is weird. Because it's weird, dude. Which actually could have been more dangerous than a bullet, honestly. You know what I mean? Like it's probably not a sterile human tooth. Yeah. But like people are getting shot in the head and like losing half of their skulls, and like this dude got shot in the leg, lost his leg, look at a ragged injury from the knee down. Dude, the violence in this is next level ugly, but that all ties into the world. Yep. All of that shit happens on the surface, And when it bleeds down into the vault, into Vault 33 in the first episode, when the inciting incident pops off, like nobody knows what to do. Like their security team all have like stun gun. It's hilarious. Like the parallels to real life.
If you look at what she went out into the world with was a train type gun.
A train
gun. Yeah.
Basically, they took like the people from like San Angeles and Demolition Man and put them up into the surface world of like Mad Max. That's what they did. You know, like we're police officers. We're not trained to handle this kind of violence. Like that's her upbringing. She thought that was gonna be enough. That like when she like double taps the ghoul at one point, and he's just like, yeah, it's just a drop in the old drug bucket. And he's like, blap. Like that's it.
Yeah, it's a small drop in a big ocean of drugs.
Real old ocean of drugs. Right, I knew it was something like that. You know, but that's the story world that they're in there. So she's on a misguided attempt mission to rescue her dad. You know, we already did the spoiler warning. She's trying to rescue dad. Dad had a hand in some ugly shit that happened. We get all that revealed at the end. We won't reveal the specifics, I guess. But it's her journey from point A to B and kind of the friends she made along the way, being Maximus and the Ghoul for different reasons in different places and with different levels of understanding. You know, and it's really that simple. Like you said, I think in episode 1, you weren't expecting like a Game of Thrones level of like intrigue or politicization of factions or anything like that. How do you think the story played out, broadly speaking?
Well, knowing that it came from a video game and probably a playthrough where they're like, we did have some fun with this world. I think that's what it was. Like they had fun with the world, still telling a story that was comprehensive. But yeah,
loads of development, like we said.
Yep. It definitely focused a lot more on character work, which I mean, you're adapting an RPG. It should have a lot of character work. You're literally playing a role. And so I think they did a good job of telling a story. One of my favorite things, like we're talking about story, is like, and it's a big part of the Fallout, Bethesda type game thing, is side quest. And you had that, like the main mission is her find her dad. Well, then it turned into her taking a head to get her dad. Then it was them losing the head. But then you had the ghoul who was getting sick, so they had to run a whole side quest to get him the drugs he needs to stay the ghoul without becoming feral. So you had that whole build up, and then you had the side quest of the runaway squire who has now the main object, which who like gets his foot stepped on by the armor.
Dude, that was disgusting, dude. When he took his boot off, I thought I was gonna. Dude, I work healthcare. You know this, dude. It takes a lot to get me. Dude, he rolls that bloody sock down. I'm like, all right, it's gonna be a gash. No, dude, every bone in his foot was broken and just like dangling, like limp dangle.
As I almost should be. As it
because
should
the power
be.
armor weighs 900 pounds.
Yes.
And its actuated foot crushed him and was stomped. Actually, he stomped on him. It wasn't an accident. Like Maximus stomped on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that was disgusting. Oh my God. But keep talking. Yeah, side quest. The squire, they had to recover that.
They had to recover that. And that was one of my favorite scenes. If we talked about comedy, he was there and he sees Maximus and Lucy coming. And then he pulls out his gun and starts shooting. And then they cuts to them. They're looking around like, you didn't hit us.
Yeah, dude, because he mag dumped. You hit nothing.
And he's like, I sucked without a scope.
Yeah. Dude, the comedy was on point. Do you remember that there was a scene where Lucy's brother breaks into Vault 31 and the brain in the robot thing is like running after him with like the needle to kill him. And he's like, oh, you'll never get in there. You'll never get in there to find the information you want. Oh, he's getting the information he wants. It was so dead ass hilarious. Yeah. And there was so much stuff like that. Like everything, all the Vault humor is as cringe and funny as you would think it would be for like Pleasantville kind of funny.
I will tell you everything you want. Just let me stare at you with this.
Right. Dude, like Lucy telling the guy that comes into the vault for her to marry, like they meet and she's like, you want to have sex? And like it's funny because it's an abrupt cut into then him throwing her on the table to do her. You know what I mean? So like the timing is very funny.
You got that confused. Like it was her who went there and she turned around. Like she was talking about the appliance and turned around and he was completely naked. And she's like, Okie-Dokie.
Yeah, right.
It was her talking to Maximus after they fell into the new vault. She's like, do you want to have sex? And that's when you saw his naivety play forward.
Yeah, I blended them. but the timing was all there, and like there was a lot of visual humor that went on, and it only was effective because the delivery met with timing and it worked well. Like the Ghoul has his own brand of like dry humor where he just says fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
But like everything Lucy delivers is very Vault Tech, Pip Boy, Vault Boy, whatever.
Yeah.
Because she really got into that role.
Yeah.
And even at the darker points near the end, that core character bit of who she is from the Vault, like that dopey, naive comic timing is still there in some of the things she says.
Yeah.
You know, so it worked. I was digging that for sure. You know, I look, when we're talking story right now, just other things that worked. I remember going through those first 4 episodes and being like, okay, this is going to be some standard fare. We're going to go on the fetch quest now. We're going to get the tracker. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And then I think it was right around episode 5 or 6. I think it was 5 because it starts with one of the old commercials that the Ghoul did when he was still not the Ghoul, where he's trying to sell the Vault Tech Vault. And it's in black and white. And of course, the 50s vibe with the music always stays, which is really cool.
Yeah.
You know, and he's doing his performance with his, you know, his way of talking. He's got that particular accent that he does. I'm like, okay, now the show is interesting for a whole nother reason. 5 episodes in.
Yeah, which they introduced Vault
Fucking
4 in that
glorious.
one, and how Vault 4 was going to be run in that one.
Yep.
Which that's the vault they fall into later is Vault 4.
See, set up, pay off. We get into the vault. There's multiple arcs that go on in the vault where, like, you know, Lucy figures out, oh no, these people are crazy. They're not like the people in my vault. But then they're like, whoa, we didn't do nothing to you. Like, fucking, you want to roll down here and kill 3 of our guys or whatever. And then they have another visual gag where, like, they sentence her to death. But it's like, you know, the guy's rolling up on her with, like, the giant axe or whatever it was. He's like, and now you must go. You are banished. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's fucking hysterical.
And we're going to give you 2 weeks of supplies.
Right, dude. And somebody will carry it for you, dude. Yeah. It was too funny because that's exactly what some Vault Tech bullshit would be, because this isn't Walking Dead. This isn't Negan was going to bash her brains in or some bullshit. You know what I mean? It's not Game of Thrones. It wasn't going to be that. And it was so funny.
But then it even, like, played into her, like, that played into a bigger story because Matt Simmons thought she was in trouble, went and stole the fusion core to power his armor, and then she's like, no, stop. Let us go.
He's
like,
dude, as he's destroying shit.
Yeah.
So he probably killed like 8 people there by himself. Because he
Sorry.
backhanded one dude.
Yeah.
Right. So like he geared up to go get his girl, which was great because I'm like, okay, so he's engaged in the hero role, like you said. This is a good reason to steal the fusion cell. You know, which is another thing from the game. You know, power armor, like you said, you got to keep it charged.
Yeah, but then she taught someone to giving the core back to them.
Yep. Because that's the Vault Tech way. And what does she say?
Yeah.
She goes, we can't take that. Their backup power would be off in a couple days. They will all die. I can't rescue my dad and tell him that. It would break his heart. And then again,
I destroyed a whole community
for him
to save him.
Right. And then they quick cut. And there's like a cleaning lady mopping the floor or some shit, and the fusion cell skadoodles down the vent and just pops out on the floor. It's just funny. It's just chopped. It's edited well for fun. Right, funny. And then of course they're walking away, and the power armor's just standing there. I'm like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, which is a huge
that works.
Which was a huge like growing point for Matt's in this because he believes that he can only be useful in that armor.
In the armor. Dude, they really did. Dude, I mean, we can start to wind things down here because I think we talk story. I don't really want to give away any more specific, than we did, so people can enjoy this. Because I think it's safe to say we both highly endorse people watching this show sooner than later, and not because of spoilers, but because it deserves to be watched. Because if we can throw 1 billion watch minutes their way, maybe Amazon Prime makes more stuff like this and less stuff like fucking Rings of Power or what's the other one you hate that ruined your books? It's got like 15 books.
Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was the big fear going into this. Is they thought they were going to Ring of Power. That actually, when your show becomes a verb, you messed up. And when someone says they might Ring of Power this or Wheel of Time this, or know
Halo, because
we're
not getting out of here without me referencing the meme, because I'm going to put the meme right back up here. Yeah, dude, exactly. Dude, basically Fallout just walked up to Halo and fucking cuffed them on the back of the head and were like, this is how you adapt IP. You see how we told our own story in here and we didn't make anybody go, Nope, that would never happen in this universe. Or we didn't take a character from that universe and have them act completely different than they acted in the game. That's how you do it. Period. End of discussion. Attention, Paramount directors, producers, whomever. Watch this shit and take notes, please. There we go.
And also, the people who are going to make Animate Season 2, watch what you did in Season 1 and repeat it.
Do more of that. Yes. Could we do more of this, please? Tone, style, aesthetics, humor, character. Dude, keep it. Pay these people what they want. You spent $500 billion or whatever to get the rights to the Tolkien stuff to ruin Rings of Power. Could you peel off a couple bucks for your buddy Winterwolf and make a decent season 2? Could you do it? I think they will. Honestly, I think this is, if this hits 1.5 billion watch minutes or something, like, how could they not? How could they not, like, invest heavily in this show?
Yeah.
It has IP potential from multiple stories, from multiple vaults, with multiple characters, multiple walks of life. Dude, you could get completely out of the vault and do Fallout Brotherhood of Steel with a whole different cast of characters. You know,
yeah.
Enclave, the other dude, go to Boston, like you said, from Fallout 4. Bring in the Minutemen. There's billions of stories you could tell in this world. You just have to keep it recognizable and true to source. You can write any story you want. Leave the old shit out of it, keep it in line with the timelines and canon, and you'll be fine. So, I mean, you and I spend a little bit of time on mine just looking up kind of some of the, like the social vibes around this show. And, you know, we were talking before we recorded this video, some of the issues that people had just, you know, canonically speaking with, you know, some of the events in New Vegas. Some people didn't like it, didn't think it jived. One of the other negatives I saw, because this is how this world works, right? I saw an article out there somewhere. I don't remember if it was the Hollywood Reporter or not. But of course, they were citing sources that said, you know, not enough LGBT representation in Lucy should have been gay. And I'm like, why?
Yeah,
like,
why? It doesn't add to the story. If it doesn't add to the story, then why put it in there? It doesn't make sense. You know,
like, it just doesn't add up. It's just...
I mean,
yeah,
like I said,
that makes sense. It's a managed economy and a managed society. If they were talking about not having dogs in the vault because they were, you know, they eat meat, it's an unnecessary, what do they call it, inefficiency?
Yeah.
People that can't breed are an unnecessary inefficiency in that situation, I guess. Unless you're like a top scientist or some shit. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's ways to figure that out.
I mean, I could argue for the other side where they're like, well, that she did get sperm donors and stuff like that. But I mean, it doesn't add to the story. And plus, it's a controlled society. So they would go with what the 1950s were like and not what the 2010s were, because technically they were living in a vault in 2010.
Yep.
Well, technically, no, actually, they weren't. The bombs dropped in 2077. Sorry.
All right. So you edit out whatever you want to do with that, and then this little part here, and then I'll go. All right, so if we have to drop numbers on this piece, because that's what we do here, is we're going to jump out of here, because that was our deepest of cuts into the Fallout show, which we both just glowingly kind of gushed over for about an hour. 4.5 out of 5 for The Wolf. I'm going big on this one. I think that the story itself isn't unique enough to give this a perfect score, because I've played the games, and that maybe that's unfair that it works against a rating here, but like, it's not an original enough kind of concept, so I do have to take a little bit away from it. It was, like you said, there's a game that's basically the setup and the main storyline quest is rescuing a family member. That's ostensibly what the main quest is here. I liked seeing some of the side quests that reminded me of other in-game stuff reflected. I love the character work. I love the aesthetic. The comedy, when it hits, is good. And unlike Marvel kind of comedy, it never takes away from any of the violence that we just saw until it's appropriate to take away from it. Like when ugly things happen here, they're allowed to breathe for a couple of minutes and be ugly and make you kind of hate that it happened. And then the joke comes in later, you know? So I think there was enough of that there. I like that this in no way, shape, or form is appropriate for kids. Like, it's okay to have grown-up TV shows. It doesn't have to have mass audience to, like, every ratings group, you know, on the spectrum. We don't need that. This is definitely a show for grown-ups. So 4 out of 5 for me, and just a special shout out to these guys wrote a female character, present day, who's not a Mary Sue, who doesn't fall victim to any of those tropes, any of those cliches. You know what I mean? She'd be right at home in the pantheon. If they give her another good season or two, she'd be on that current meme we use that has the Ripleys, the Sarah Connors, and all the other ones for being an original female character that got some shit done without necessarily having to be like a stand-in for a male archetype character. Like Lucy is a good character on this show, and I want to see more.
To take you up one more on that, they did it without emasculating men.
Right, exactly. And that's, dude, I harp on that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, that was what I said this episode 1, you remember. I said, I'm waiting for her to get the better of literally every other dude she's with to prop her up by tearing them down. And it never happened. Never happened. Not for a minute. Not for a minute. Nope. Not one scene. So, yeah. So give me some final thoughts and a score.
So my final thoughts is I believe this was a near perfect show. I don't believe in perfection because it can never be obtained. There's stuff that comes close, and I believe this is out of, if we're set it, now the bar's not set real high for Amazon as we've talked about their other shows, but they cleared the bar completely. They got into, I would say, early season Game of Thrones type level of of intrigue, story, quality, character development. I believe they did a really good job on this, so I would go right up there with you, 4.5 at the lowest.
Yep. And if we were splitting decimal hairs, I only use the 0.5s and the holes, but you've used the 0.8s before. For 4.5, if that's where you're landing, I think that's fair, and I think that's a great endorsement from the channel that other people, if you're watching us this long, we've tried it. We told you what it was all about. We told you what we liked. Dude, we didn't really have, I don't know so much that I had anything that I actively disliked. I didn't hate the fact that it felt familiar. It's supposed to, but I mean, I'm sure there were sections where pacing might have been a little slower than I liked, or maybe, this line of dialogue was a little weird, and that'll account for the 0.5 I deducted. But overall, this is probably one of the better shows. This might be the best grown-up show you and I have covered, because I think Andor had some pacing problems up front with him searching for the sister arc that kind of dragged down some of those early episodes a little lower than 4.5. But through 8 episodes, this is the best show we've watched in a long time, hands down. Hands down.
Yep.
Very true. All right, King Z, get us out of here because we have other stuff to do, man. We're busy.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us in our deep dive of the Fallout series. If you liked what we do here and it's your first time on the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If this isn't your first time and you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. Come on, join the den. Hit that thumbs up because it does help the video. Leave us a comment because we want to hear your thoughts. We will reply in a timely manner. I won't say immediately, but in a timely manner.
Timely, dude. Timely. We got stuff to do, man. Timely.
Yeah. So with that said, we're going to say goodnight, and there's only one way to say goodnight when you get unlimited power from cold fusion, and that is the bomb drops.